From Real Clear Politics today, Ag Bill Barr, spying on a political campaign is a big deal. So the news is coming out that Mr. Attorney General Barr is going to be investigating whether or not the spying that occurred was actually legal. But the caveat here, and I can, we talked about this off camera, and I think you already had taken the thought that most people are probably getting out of this story. He's not looking into the collusion. That's not the investigation that he's looking at. There was apparently a previous investigation that was spying on the Trump campaign during the campaign, and that's the claim, anyway, is that's where the original information came from that led to the investigation into collusion. So here he's actually saying we need to look at that first one and determine if the reason that investigation occurred was legal. And I have a big quote here from him that I want to get into because I think he makes the point better than I can. So a little bit of a wall of text, but it's worth it. From Agbar, direct quote, we're worried about foreign influence in elections. We want to make sure that during elections, I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. It's a big deal. I think spying did occur, yes. I think spying did occur. The question was whether it was adequately predicated. And I'm not suggesting it wasn't adequately predicated. I need to explore that. I think it's my obligation. The reason he's specifically using the word predicated is that the Attorney General's office actually establishes the guidelines that the FBI uses to determine whether or not they can investigate something. And there's 3 types of investigations, one of which is called a predicated investigation, and it basically just means they had some evidence that initiated the investigation. Now, as far as the collusion one goes, everybody's crying that, oh, they had no evidence, they had no evidence. That's just basically what he's saying here, if you're reading between the lines, is he's not investigating the collusion. He doesn't care. They had evidence because if you read the guidelines, which I took the time to do, and they're quite dry and boring, they're super loose. You basically almost have to have, for the first level of investigation that they call an assessment, basically they just have to have an agent in their own office even say, I think somebody might be committing a crime, and then they can launch an investigation.
Right.
And so as far as that collusion investigation is going, they didn't really need a whole lot to start it. And so he's specifically saying, or at least he's implying, that the collusion investigation had a legal basis. It started correctly. He's not investigating that. And I think if we were to look at, that, oh, it's an illegal investigation, he would have come forward a long time ago. Like, that's his job. He's the Attorney General. He would have come forward and said, this investigation started illegally, and we're going to prosecute that, or we're going to investigate that. But he's not saying that. He's saying there was spying that was done on the Trump campaign by a federal bureau, and we need to investigate whether or not that spying was a legal activity. Not whether or not the spying occurred, but whether or not we had reason to conduct the spying in the first place. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I support the investigation. If it comes right down to it, if there are people in our government who are conducting illegal investigations or doing illegal activities, we should root them out with the same ferocity that we're rooting out any other criminal.
Yep.
Or pursuing any other investigation.
Yeah, so, easy story.
Yeah,
I support this, assuming that there's not an additional level that we are remiss and that we're, I want to know. I want to know more stuff. So investigate more stuff and then tell me what you find. Preferably, tell me directly instead of having 2 levels of summary and then refusing to give me the fruits of that investigation. That would piss me off.
Yeah, and that's gross.
I still want to see the Mueller report.
Yeah, as do we all, I think. And that was kind of the other point that I brought up this story for, is that the Mueller report was multifaceted in that there was an FBI investigation, but that was also the Senate. The Senate was investigating it. Like, there were multiple groups looking into this. And so, if you recall correctly, the FBI investigation actually ended way before the Senate investigation did.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't recall, but at the time, I don't think the FBI released any results of that investigation. But I think it mostly was just like they didn't indict anybody. They didn't arrest anyone.
Right.
And so, again, I don't think this invalidates that collusion investigation in any way at all. And I know people are going to hold this up and go, well, look, he said spying happened. It's like, yeah, because that's the purview of the FBI.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
Part of the reason those guidelines are so lax, whether I agree with it or not, is so that they have the power and the ability to investigate proactively before crimes occur. That's one of the stated goals of the FBI, is to proactively fight illegal activity. And so those guidelines are, you can argue whether or not they're good or bad as they are, but they're intentionally somewhat vague and lax so as to not restrict the FBI in its ability to investigate domestic terrorism, is basically the argument. I think personally, as far as those guidelines go, like, I think we could have better definitions of when to start them and when to not, because it's a super loose system that I read some articles where people are worried that it's being used to abuse the power of the FBI. Essentially, they're claiming like it also makes it so that you can weaponize the FBI in the same way that people are calling in on their friends who are playing, violent video games loudly and getting them swatted. Except for here, you're using the FBI instead of your local police department. So I think there's a stance there, and I think there's some ways we could address that so that we're not literally weaponizing investigations. But as it stands right now, at the time these investigations did start, at least the collusion one, like, it started legally because super loose, not hard to do. Just basically you need somebody to say, I think this was